I know the Jets obviously are high on him, and they made a very tough decision in regards to Sam Darnold. But the reality was nobody within the organization right now had any ties with Sam other than getting to know him the last couple of years. Joe Douglas didn't draft him. Robert Saleh obviously had no connection to him. And once you peeled away the onion, you realize that they were probably going to go out and do their own thing and also buy some time by drafting a quarterback now in the first round in 2021. That probably buys you 3 years as a decision maker, as a head coach, because you have to allow time for this whole process to develop. So just looking at it from that perspective, I felt pretty strongly that the Jets were going to make a move like this.
You brought up Sam Darnold earlier, and in everybody's mind, everybody feels like Sam got a raw deal here with the lack of talent around him, from the coaching aspect of it to the GM that drafted him and then got fired the next year right after the draft was over, which was very fugazi and weird. What were your thoughts on Sam's timing, and do you think Sam can still be a success story with the Carolina Panthers?
I think he can. I think there's a lot of ability there, having met with him probably between preseason games and regular season games 8 or 9 times over the last few years. I was always impressed. I thought there was a maturity. I thought he was trying to do all the right things, and there were certain things that came to him naturally and certain things that he had to figure out. Josh McCown was a tremendous resource for him in bouncing things off of and getting an understanding of the position and what it means to be a pro. But ultimately, it's you out there. And with a bad offensive line and this past season, probably the worst collection of skill position players in the NFL, how could you expect him to flourish under those circumstances? There are some scouts that will tell you that they didn't see enough improvement. The mistakes that he was making as a rookie, he was still making in his 3rd year. In my estimation, he didn't have the support. Carolina, Matt Rule, the hope would be that those two will find a lot of common ground and that he will be put in a position to succeed, as opposed to what we saw the last couple of years with the Jets. So if you're asking me, can he be a successful quarterback in the NFL? My resounding answer is yes. Can he be a top 5 QB in the NFL? That might be pushing it. There might be limitations to the ceiling just based on what we've seen from his first few years in the NFL.
Ian, we look at the draft and we talk about Trevor Lawrence, we talk about Wilson, we talk about Justin Fields, we talk about the Patriots possibly moving up to number 8 if Justin Fields falls to number 8. When you look at this draft class, and being that with the COVID-19 season, a lot of these teams didn't get an opportunity to really play. So a lot of these players are going into a draft where you don't know what they were going to do in their sophomore year, or their junior year, or their senior year. So they're going into the draft cold turkey. Do you think that this draft is going to be more amusing than any other draft because of the fact that we didn't get the chance to see some of these players going into the draft this year?
Yeah, one thing that we've always learned about the NFL draft, it gives fan bases hope more than anything else. That's a day in the year, even if you're coming off a 1-15 season, a 2-14 season, a season that had very few highs. That day as a fan base and as a team, as an organization, you finally have something to sell again, hope. So I think every year when we go into the draft and there's this mysterious element of where guys are going to fit in and how they're going to play as pros, you have to take it all with a grain of salt. This year's version probably a little bit more mysterious, just based on the fact that there isn't the same body of work that teams have to lean on. They couldn't send scouts out in person to go see a bunch of these players. Even the pro days were not what they normally are. To nail the draft, you have to have a real good feel for the individual. And what we're seeing is a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of trying to get to the bottom of it with people that that know this guy, that know that guy, and things are going to slip through the cracks. Already, it's an imperfect science. So now you toss this into the equation this year when you just haven't had the same kind of exposure level to these players. When we look back on it, the 2021 draft is going to be a pretty wild affair because you might have guys that go too high and teams reach, and you certainly will have players that end up going too low that were overlooked that just didn't get the attention that they normally would get during a normal college football season.